Hello everyone, and today we're going to learn how to graph a radical function. Alright, so first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to learn a few things, okay? Like what all these letters mean, like this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one.
Are these ones?
Yeah. So first thing we do, we identify our starting point, which is going to be, oops, I'm going to need a little more room than that. Okay. It's going to be the opposite sign of K. I'm trying to write in...
Look!
Yes, alright. The opposite of H with coordinate K. Again, I apologize. I'm at my daughter's dance recital for this, so working while waiting. Alright, so now the Y, again, let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, the Y is the Y coordinate from a point, but more specifically, not your starting point. Okay, this is another point, a separate point that is on your graph, but this is not your starting point location. Okay, the A value is basically the movement of the graph It's also the scalar multiplier, and I'm going to, later on in this video I'll show you a trick using that. Okay, the X is the X coordinate from a point, but again, not your starting point. Okay, very important. Again, this is not your starting point location. It's just there's another X coordinate. Okay? The H. This is the X coordinate of the starting point. Okay? And the K is the Y coordinate of the starting point. Alright, so those are our key features of this. But the key formula, again, is going to be this guy right here. That's going to be the key for us in this problem set. Alright.
Can we do a video?
We'll see. Let's see if it's light enough for us to do it, okay? I'll see if I can bring us up. I'll move us down here. Easy, though. Alright, so let's plot our point, our starting point. So -1, -3. Let's change my pen width here. -1, -3. So right here. Boom. Okay, so now let's talk about some of this other stuff here. Okay. So now, next thing we have to worry about is the shift. Remember, shift is where my starting point went from the origin. In this case, because I went to -1, -3, I went left 1, down 3 from 0, 0. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the reflection. Okay, now reflection, again, remember, is dealing with the A value. If the A value is positive, then it is none. If the A value is negative, then it's over x-axis. Okay. Now in this case, looking at my A value, which is right here, okay, it's positive. So it's none. Now, domain and range and all that other fun stuff we're going to have to wait on until after we graph it. Okay? So now, okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to create a table. Okay? Now, this is going to be a little different. I'm going to show you why. Than any other table you've seen. I don't like that color. Let's darken it a little bit. Okay? So X, Y as usual, but I'm going to add the R. Now the R is going to be for the radical set, okay? So let's take a look. Now the first one is going to be for our starting point, so that's -1, -3, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my coordinates. I want a 1 under the radical, I want a 4 under the radical, and so if I keep going, I want a 9 under the radical. Now, why would I want those numbers, you might ask? Because, now the reason why I'd want those is because those are perfect squares. They'll come out nicely from the radical, okay? So now, here's where the tough part begins, okay? We want to start thinking about, okay, numbers that take care of this for us, okay? So for instance, I want to think, in my equation above, here, let me clear out some of this crap here. Oh, can't. So, I want to think, in my function, I want to have a regular 1 under the radical. So, what plus 1 equals 1? Well, the answer is 0. Okay, so that's going to be my x-coordinate. So, now we're going to do the math to get the y-coordinate. So, down here, so y equals 2 radical. 0 plus 1 minus 3. Okay, y equals 2 radical 1 minus 3. So y equals 2 times 1 minus 3, because radical 1 is 1. 2 minus 3 is -1. Okay, so this is going to be -1. Okay. Now, our next step is we're going to repeat the process. Okay. Okay. You'll see her in a little bit. She's taking care of Sissy. Now, our next step is we are going to now try to think of a number. So, we want 4 under the radical. So, what plus 1 will give me 4? Well, the answer is 3. Okay, so that's what's going to go in for x, 3. Okay, so now let's do the math to see what's going to be left for y. So y equals 2 radical 4 minus 3. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 minus 3 gives me +1. So that's 1. Okay. Now our next step, we want 9 under the radical. Okay. So again, I'm going to clear out the stuff from our last step. What are you doing, Isabella?
I just love you.
I love you too. Alright, so now, here we go. Oops. So we think, what plus 1 gives me a value of 9? Well, that's 8, right? 8 plus 1 is 9. So y equals 2 radical 9 minus 3. Y equals 2. Now 9 kicks out as 3. Y equals 2 times 3 is 6 minus 3. Therefore, y is 3. So when x is 8, y is 3. Okay? Now again, folks, we only used this column for identifying what I want under the radical. These are not part of our coordinates, so I don't need this anymore. So now, let's plot our points. So we have the coordinate here. Let me fix my pen. Okay, we're going to have the coordinate 0, negative 1. So let's graph 0, negative 1. Come on. There we go. Then we're going to graph the coordinate 3, 1. Alright, so now we're going to plot the point 3, 1. Whoops. And then we have the coordinate 8, 3. Now I'm going to take this pen down a little bit. So 8, 3. Whoops. Okay. So now let's connect our dots. Now we're going to go at the starting point. So remember, this is my starting point. Okay. I'm just going to make a loop. Like so. So there's my graph. So now don't forget, we have to answer the rest of these questions. Now domains. Alright, so let's start with the domains. Now the domains, remember, are your x values. Okay? The domains are our x's. Okay? Now remember, looking at my x's, see how they start at negative 1 and they're going in this direction. Okay? Now notice back here, I don't have anything, which means I cannot claim like we're used to seeing of all real numbers. We have a limitation back here. So we're going to state that x is greater than or equal to our starting point of x, which is negative 1. Okay? Now, let's talk about our y's. Okay, let's talk about the y's. Now notice my y values. Okay, let me clear this out so we can see what we're doing here. Now notice my y values from my starting point start here and they keep going upwards. So we're going to say our y values are going to be greater than or equal to negative 3. Okay? Now our last step, we have to determine shrink, stretch, or neither. Now remember, this comes down to the absolute value of a. Now there's 3 things that happens. If it is less than 1, then it is a shrink. If the absolute value of a is equal to 1, then it is none. And if it is greater than 1, it is a stretch. Okay, now looking at my a value here, my a value was positive 2. So the absolute value of 2 is 2. Okay, so now comparing it to 1, 2 is greater than 1, which means this is a stretch. Okay? So now we've got everything we need. Okay? Alright, so let's look at the next problem. Alright, so let's begin. First thing we're going to need to do is identify our starting coordinate. Okay? So we take the opposite of that with this. So negative 8, comma 8. Okay, so let's plot it. Negative 8. Oops.
She is up there somewhere. I have them all put away already. I have it. I got that shirt today.
All right. Okay.
I didn't put it.
So now, let's take a step back. Okay, now let's talk about our shift. Where did my point go compared to the origin? Well, we went left. That's all. That's left. Left 8. Up 8. Okay, reflection. I look at my A value. Now notice, since my A value is -3, then it's negative, so this is going to be over X axis. Alright, so now let's create our table and make our graph. Okay. Okay. X radical Y.
Can you sit on your butt, please?
Oops. Need one more.
Excuse me.
Okay. Now, again, our starting point starts here, so -8, 8. Radical, we want 1, 4, 9, because those are perfect squares. Okay, so again, let's set up our equation. Y equals -3 radical something plus 8 plus 8. So again, for our first one, we want to have a 1 under the radical. So what plus 8 gives me 1? And the answer is -7. Okay, so let's do this out. Y equals -3 radical 1 plus 8 equals 3 times 1 plus 8. Multiply. Y equals -3 plus 8. So Y will equal 5. So when X is -7, Y is 5. Okay? So now I'm going to clear this out a little bit. Alright. Just give me a second. There we go. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Now this next one, I want 4 under the radical. So what plus 8 is going to give me 4? Well, that's -4. -4. So Y equals -3 radical 4 plus 8. Y equals -3 and radical 4 is 2 plus 8. Multiply. Y equals -6 plus 8. Therefore, Y will equal 2. Okay? So now, I'm going to clear this out and set up for the next one.
Maybe she had to wait for now.
Yeah, okay, hold on one second. Alright, so here we go again. I want 9 under the radical. So what plus 8 gives me 9? Well, that would be +1. 1. Y equals -3 radical 9 plus 8. Y equals -3 times 3 plus 8. Alright, so we multiply this. Y equals -9 plus 8 equals. So Y is -1. Alright, so now we're going to graph our points. Alright, so let's graph them up. So we have negative 7, 5. So negative 7, 5. Come on. There we go. Then we have negative 4, 2. Then we have 1, negative 1. Okay, connect the dots. Alright, so now let's take a look at our graph and see what we're dealing with here. Okay, let's take a look. Now our domains, look at starting at x's, they start at negative 8, going up. Okay, so x is going to be greater than or equal to negative 8. Okay, now my y values in this case, looking at my y's, they start at positive 8. Whoops. And they're moving down. So our y's are going to be less than or equal to positive 8. Okay, now shrink, stretch, or neither. Absolute value, negative 3 is 3. I compare that to 1. 3 is still greater than, so this is also a stretch. And there we have it. Alright, so let's look at this next one. So, first thing we need to do is get our starting point, opposite of this to this. 3, 1. Okay, now from here, shift, let's go plot a point, 3, 1. That looks terrible. Come on. Alright, so 3, 1 right about there. Now, let's make our chart. Okay. Okay. X, radical, y. So we have 3. Oops. Okay. I kind of got ahead of myself here. Hold on. Okay. There we go. So we have the coordinate 3, 1. 1, 4, 9. Okay. Now, y equals 1/2 radical something minus 3 plus 1. Okay? So now, we have to start thinking. I want 1 under the radical. So what minus 3 gives me 1? Well, that would be 4. So 4. So 1/2 radical 1 plus 1. 1/2 times 1 plus 1. Multiply this. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2. Plus 1 is 1.5. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to clear this out. Okay. Alright. Now, let's think of the next one. I want 4 under the radical. So what minus 3 is 4? Well, 7 minus 3 is 4. So 7. Let's do this up. 1/2 radical 4 plus 1. Radical 4 breaks down as 2. 2 times a half? Well, that's just 1. So we get 2. Alright. So let me clear this out. Alright, so now.
She's 2 minutes away.
Okay, 9. We want 9 under the radicals, so what minus 3 is 9? Well, that's 12. But the problem is, my x's don't go up that high, so we're not going to even worry about this one. Alright, so let's plot our points. Okay. Yep, 4, 1.5. Okay, and do your best.
She did? Were you okay?
And then 7, 2.
You're not a puppy, so she doesn't want you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
When you're passing somebody, okay?
Now, so let's create our dots.
You did awesome.
Okay. So now at this point, let's do everything. Okay. Now the shift, we went to the right 3, up 1. Reflection, because the A value is positive, it is none. Domain. Now again, my x's start at 3
Bella,
and go up.
look at me. Was it real?
X
or was
greater
it
than or
fake?
equal to 3.
Yes, they were
My y
playing.
values start
Sister's
at
right here. She's
1
not hurt.
and going up.
She's
So
just
y,
fine.
so greater than or equal to 1. And shrink, stretch, or neither. Absolute value of a half is 1/2. Compare it to 1. Well, 1/2 is less than 1, so that is a shrink. There's that one. Alright, now we'll go with the shortcut to this. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of a couple neat tricks. Now for the x values, if you've noticed, we start by getting the starting point just like we have, and then we start adding like 1, 3, 5, 7 in order to get to our points. Now if you think about it for a minute, here's our chart that we've been making. Okay, we had the x, we had the rate, or what we wanted under the radical, and then we had our y, right? Now let's say for instance we had a starting point of 1, okay, for our x. And so from here, the radicals we wanted 1, 4, 9. So let's put 1, 4, 9. Now again, we're used to seeing that. Now, if I think about it, if I add, there's technically a 0 here. If I add 1, I get to the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, now if I want to get to the next radical, I add 3 to the 1, and I get 4. Now 1 and 4 gives me the 5. Again, we always go back to the beginning. And then the next radical we get by adding 5 to get to 9. And 1 plus 9 gives me 10. Okay? So, again, just by adding this, we are getting our ordered pairs easier. Now, for the y's, what we're going to do, we start at our starting point and then add the a value. So let's say, for instance, we had the function, I don't know, y equals 2 radical x minus 1 plus 2. So again, we'd start at plus 2, right? Okay. Now from here, we're going to add the a value every single time. So here's my a value, 2. Add 2, I get 4. Add 2, I get 6. Add 2, I get 8. And it gives you your coordinates much easier. Okay? So here we go. We're going to take a look at a few examples. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. Radical x minus 1 plus 2. Okay, so first thing I know is that my a value, even though I can't see it, is 1. Okay? So first thing I need to do is I need to get my starting point. The starting point, remember, we're going to do the opposite of this guy got to get the rest of our points. So let's create our table in the shortcut thing, and I'll show you. Ooh. Let's make that a little smaller. That's better. It's going to look a little weird. Okay. So we have the x, we have the radical, and we have the y. Now again, we know our starting point is 1, 2. Okay, so my radical was 0. Now again, before we used to, for the radical, we'd pick out, well, what do I want to have under the radical? 1, 4, 9. Right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 1 here instead. So I get 2. I'm going to add 3 here, and I get 5. I'm going to add 5 here, and I'm going to get 10. Okay? So there are my pieces. Then from here, now let's go for the y values. So again, I'm just going to add a every single time. So plus 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Okay, so there are our points. So we're going to graph as many of these as we can. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to pick a point and make my point just a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to plot the point 2, 3. Over 2, up 3. Then we're going to have the coordinate 5, 4. Over 5, up 4. Then we're going to go to 10 and 5. Okay. And let's connect our dots. It's going to look something like that. Now, from here, we have to think about our reflection. Now again, since this graph is going up, it is definitely none. Okay. Now from here, let's talk about domains. Now looking at my x's. Okay. See how my x's here start at 1 and they keep going up this way forever, never, never, never. So we're going to say x greater than or equal to 1. Now my range values, again my y's, we start at 2 and those keep going up forever, never, never, never. So y is going to be greater than or equal to 2. Now shrink, stretch, or neither. Again, we look at the a value, and since it is 1, it is neither. None. All right. Let's go to the next one. All right, so let's look at this next one. Okay. Now again, we are going to start by finding our points, our starting location. I'm going to do the opposite of this guy to whatever this is. So my starting point, -4 by 9. Okay, it's that simple. So again, let's go to -4, 9. Oh, it's going to be up here. -4, up 9. Alright, let me get a big dot for this. -4, 9 is right here. Boom. That's a killer dot right there. Alright, now let's zoom back out. Let's talk about the rest of this problem. Okay. So I'm going to make my chart. X, radical, y. Now again, knowing the shortcut, technically, no, you really don't need the radical spot anymore. But, you know, if you want to have it there for comfort, you can. Alright, so we know our starting point is -4, 9. So knowing my shortcut, I'm going to do +1, +3, +5, +7 if you want to go crazy with this. So -4 plus 1 is -3. -3 plus 3 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. And this is going to go to 12 because 7 plus 5 is 12. Now obviously this 12 is going to go off our graph, so really not all that worried about that one. Alright, now let's do the y's. Okay, now my y's, Okay, we're going to start. My A value, again, is -2. So I'm going to be minusing 2 every time. So 9 minus 2 is 7. 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay, so here we go. Let's plot this up. Okay, so we're going to pick a okay size dot for this. Okay, so here we go. Let's plot. We're going to do -3, 7, back 3, up 7. So right about here. Oops. Then we're going to do 0, 5. Oops. Yeah, I don't like that one. Let me zoom in for that one. 0, 5. Come on. No. That's why, never mind. There we go. It's pretty good. Okay. And then we had the coordinate 5, 3. So 5, 3 over 5, up 3. Right there. Let's connect our dots. Should have probably made that a little smaller, huh? But anyway. Yeah, maybe I can. Nope. It's not going to get pretty. Or maybe it will. Yeah. Let me try that again. Oh, croot. I lost one of my dots. Shoot. 5, 3. Okay. So now I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. There we go. That's better. Yeah, they changed this on me overnight with an update, so now all the controls are a little bit different, so that's why I'm having a little bit of a hard time here. Alright, so here we go. So now, let's get our shift. We went left 4. We went up 9. Now, since this graph is going down over x-axis, domains, well, let's think about my domains. My dotted line down a little bit here. And again, my x's start at -4 and go up, so x greater than or equal to -4. My y values, okay, they start at 9 and go down, so y is going to be less than or equal to 9. Now, shrink, stretch, or neither, remember we do the absolute value of the a. Now, since absolute value of -2 is +2, and 2 is bigger than 1, this is a stretch. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. Fraction. But again, it's still not that much of a big deal. Okay, so first things first, let's get our starting point. Opposite of this guy to this. So it's going to be -3, -2. Okay, so let's plot the point. -3, -2. Let me get a nice big dot. -3, -2. Boom. There we go. Okay, so let's zoom back out here. Hey. Oh, hey. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem now. Okay, so let's do our chart. X, radical, y, and again, if you're using the shortcut, you really don't need the radical spot anymore. That was more of a crutch. Okay, so my starting point was -3, -2. Now from here, again, using our trick, okay, I'm going to add 1, add 3, add 5, add 7. So -3 plus 1 is -2. -2 plus 3 is 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. And 6 plus 7 is 13, so I'm not really worried about that. Alright, now for the y values. Again, we're going to take the a. So I'm going to add a half every single time because it's positive. Whoops. Okay, so negative 2 plus a half is negative 1.5. Negative 1.5 plus a half is negative 1. Negative 1 plus a half is negative 1/2. Alright, so there's our coordinates. So let's go graph this thing. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit here. So what we're doing, negative 2 by negative 1.5. Alright, so let's do that one. So negative 2 by negative 1.5. That's pretty good right there. Okay, our next one is negative 1 by negative 1. Next one is going 6 by negative half. Negative. Yeah? Oh, wait a minute. Someone didn't say something. It's not negative 1. It was positive 1. So hopefully you guys were yelling, you're doing something wrong here. So 1 by negative 1. That didn't look right. 1 by negative 1. Bob Ross used to say, you don't make mistakes. We have happy little accidents. And then we have 6 by negative 1/2. So 6 by negative half is right about there. Okay, so now, let's wrap this up. Very shallow graph. Alright, so here we go. So let's figure out the rest of this thing. Okay, so our shift, we went left 3, down 2. Reflection is going to be none because we're going up. Domains, again, my x's start at negative 3 and they go up, so greater than or equal to. My ranges, they're going to start at negative 2 and go up, so greater than or equal to. And because my a value was 1/2, absolute value of 1/2 is still a half, which is less than 1. So this right here is a shrink. So hopefully we learned a lot from this. Now again, it's all up to you. Now again, folks, it doesn't really matter which way you prefer to use. If you like to have the radical there and do the workout the long way, or if you use the shortcut. It doesn't matter which way you use as long as you understand it and it makes sense to you. So, hopefully you learned a lot, and I will see you next time.